Once you log into Salto, you're going to see all of your environments on the left-hand side. These are going to be either a sandbox or one of the production client sites. And the first thing probably you'll see here is going to be the Explore tab. The Explore tab is going to show all of the configurations that have been pulled in. These are going to be all of the triggers, macros, as well as all of the guide articles as well. There's going to be 3 tabs here, if you can see: elements, files, and content. So I want to go through all 3 just to make sure that you understand the use case for each. The first is going to be elements. This shows all of your configuration elements in a folder type view. So for example, if you wanted to look at all the automations you had, you could come under here, open up automations, and then you would see all of the automations set up for this specific environment. Now, you can also just search directly for one of these particular configurations. So for example, if I wanted to just look specifically for test automation, you can see here it does matching based off of the title. Now, if you wanted to search through the configurations themselves, like let's say that you can't remember specifically the exact article title or their specific macro, you can also just search through the content by typing, like for example, I'm going to type my email address at salto.io. And then under the content tab here, you can see every single place where my email address pops up. In this case, it's probably related to, it looks like it's related to a target that's emailing myself, a view, and a number of articles that are assigned to me. Now, once you pull up a specific configurations, like for example, an automation, at any time you can also open this directly in Zendesk. So if you click this open in Zendesk button, it will lead you to that. Now you might need to log in to Zendesk, but you'll be able to see it. Once you pull up a particular configuration at the bottom, this is where you can see all of its dependencies as well as where it's being referenced. Now, in this case, I can see this trigger relies on a particular group, particular field, as well as one of those options within the field. And then I can click through to open up the specific ticket field. I can see how it's set up, and then I can see where it's being referenced. So this can be really helpful just to simply understand what's already been set up. What are the dependencies in case something isn't working? You can really dig into all the parts that make up a particular configuration and try to figure out what's not exactly behaving as expected. All right, so I want to jump into the compare and deploy, and I'm going to walk you through an example. And let me first show you kind of in Zendesk what I'm doing here. So on here, I've got an article in my sandbox environment, and it's an article that's linking out to a request form. It's also linking out to a number of different articles. And if I go to my sandbox environment, this is that same article, but here you can see it doesn't have that link to the form. It also only has a link to some of the articles. So during this deployment, what I'm going to do is update this article to include those links, as well to include any missing references. Like for example, if I take a look at this automation article, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it may not even exist in the target environment yet. So I want to not only update this article, but also add the other article so I can link to it. All right. So in Salto, how you would do this is I would go to the compare and deploy, and I would select from the source my sandbox environment, and from the target environment, I would select my production environment, and I would give this a title. So in this case, I'm going to call it Update Advanced Usage Article. You can also give your deployments a description. The description is going to live just in right below the title in the deployment history. But it's not, as you can see, it's optional. Now, as soon as you click Compare Deploy, it's going to instantly show you a comparison of those two environments. Now, just to kind of walk you through what we're looking at here, when you are looking at the compare and deploy screen, it's going to be really important to keep in mind the direction that you're going. So in this case, my source is sandbox, my production or my target is production. So what this screen is essentially saying is that if I want to get production to mirror sandbox, in other words, to take all of the changes that I've got in sandbox and push them into production, it's going to require this many changes of this. 406 of them are net new configurations, so net new macros, net new articles, net new tags. 74 are modifications. In other words, configurations that exist in both environments that have some sort of modification. And then the deletion. So deletion means that basically a configuration was added directly to the production environment or to the target environment without being added to the sandbox environment first. All right, so again, going back to this example where I want to take the changes that I've developed in my sandbox environment and push them to my production environment. So I would go to the modifications tab here, and just to make it quick, I'm going to go ahead and filter to only show me the configurations that have my my initials. This is also where you could search for the article by the title. So here I see the advanced usage article, and actually, sorry, it's right here. So here I can see it's saying that these changes are basically going to update the body of the article. So I want to go ahead and add those changes. Now, as soon as I add those changes, you'll notice that it starts to flag a number of required dependencies. And now there's a couple different ways that you can look at these required dependencies. You can either look at it directly when you add it, it's going to show at the top. There's going to be the required and the additional dependencies. I'll walk you through the required dependencies first. But as you select things in Salto, the missing dependency tab is also going to start populating. So you don't necessarily need to stay on that page to see all of the missing dependencies. But the important part here is going to be, it's going to flag any other references that don't exist yet in the target environment. Now, in this case, I've got a number of articles. So here I can see 4 different articles. And then I can also see a ticket form. And if you can see here, this little plus icon is saying that they're all being added. In other words, they don't exist at all in my production environment. So that's why I need to add them because I'm creating a reference to them. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add that ticket form. And I'm going to add all of those 4 articles. And as you can see, as soon as I add those elements, the missing dependencies tab continues to populate because those elements themselves might have some dependencies. So in this case, I think probably, yes. So the form is referring to a field, and the field doesn't yet exist in the target environment. So I want to go ahead and add these. And the articles might also refer to other articles that don't exist. So this is pretty common when you're deploying with Salto. It's going to flag any of the missing or required dependencies. Clear filter. Okay, we still got this ticket field. We got a number of options. And then in total, even though I'm updating this, what looks like it's just one update to one article, it's actually involving a number of changes because I'm needing to add a form, needing to add a number of fields. I'm also needing to add a number of articles that article is linking to. But Salto is going to take care of all of those changes as part of the deployment. So you don't need to do 26 deployments. Instead, you can just do one deployment that includes all of those changes. Now, under the other dependencies tab, this is where Salto is going to flag any of the configurations that are being referenced by whatever you chose. Now, unlike the missing dependencies tab, the other dependencies tab is not necessarily required for deployment. This is more for your reference in case you want to add additional elements. The way this works is, let's say, for example, that you want to add a new ticket field to your target environment. Now, under the other dependencies tab, this will then flag all of the other configurations that are referencing that ticket field. So you can imagine you don't need to necessarily deploy that, but let's say that you want to deploy all the changes related to that change that you made. This other dependencies tab will be a great place to look at that. And if you can see this little blue icon, this will show you what's being referenced. So in this case, it's saying that this automation is referenced by this particular ticket field. So that's why it's flagging that as another dependency. But all of these are totally optional. They're not required for deployment. Now, something that wasn't there, but now is there because I've started to add elements, is under the selected tab, it's going to show me all of the elements that I select. Let me actually just expand this so you can see everything that it's looking at. I've got those 11 either articles or article translations. I've got a number of ticket fields, number of ticket field options, a ticket form. This is a great tab to look at as you're adding elements to deploy. So always taking a look and just kind of keeping track of what you're adding in Salto. So at this stage, this is where you can move forward with the deployment process because you've got everything selected. So you would click Preview Deployment. All right, so in this deployment preview, it's giving me basically a summary of what will happen here. It's saying that within this deployment, I've got 26 elements that will be deployed. Of that, 25 will be added. In other words, these are net new configurations, and then 1 will be modified. I do really recommend when you're getting started looking with deployments in Salto, before you click the deploy button, just take a look at all of the changes here in terms of what's going to be added, what's going to be modified, or even what will be deleted, just to confirm that it's going to be what you expect for the deployment. Now, at this stage, I can go ahead and deploy. But now I'm going to go ahead and actually deploy these changes. So I'm going to click on Deploy Now. And this is the operation to actually deploy changes to my target environment. So everything that you saw up until this point doesn't actually change anything in either the source or the target environment. This is the first step where I've actually updated something using Salto. As soon as this is complete, we're going to see actually kind of a similar page to what we looked at earlier. This is going to be a summary of all. Now, this is going to be a summary of all of the changes that were actually made. So again, this is a great place to review of the 26 elements that were deployed. Did anything fail to deploy? Was there any particular issues? And it's going to track that here. So let's say that there was an issue, something failed to deploy. Salto is going to call out what went wrong here, and it's instead of promote, you'll see a button that says fix deployment, and that deployment it will create a subsequent deployment that only tries to deploy any elements that ran into those errors. Here it is. So this is the target environment. This is my my production environment. So let me just do a refresh, and here we go. So here we can see that now it links to that form, the category, as well as all of those articles not only exist, but now they have a link to it. You can actually revert any deployments in Salto. So let's say that I go to update this article, and then I realize that, oh, actually I made a mistake. I need to revert this entire deployment. Okay, so as soon as you click revert here, it's going to then create that deployment. What it's basically going to do is do the opposite of whatever you just did here. So if you added something, it removes it. If you modified it, it brings it back to the previous state. Yeah. Now, all right, so I've got, now that the revert happened, it's basically going to say that, in this case, it's going to basically remove almost everything and then also then modify that particular article translation. and then allow you to, just completely revert all of those changes that you made there. What happens if, a change was made directly in the environment? Maybe let's say that I just deployed those changes to that article, but then someone makes a change to the article directly in production, removes an article, updates that form. I need to get it back to that previous state. Under the compare and deploy, there's another type of deployment option with Salto called restore to a previous version. And what this will do is it will take the current changes, so the current state of the environment, and it will compare it to a previous version of the environment. Now, just as a note here, these previous versions of the environment are based off of the scheduled fetches that are running in the environment, either hourly, daily, or weekly, as well as any of the manual fetches that ran. I bring this up because in order for this feature to work, it works best if you've got those scheduled fetches running behind the scenes, either hourly, daily, or weekly, because that way Salto always has a kind of consistent snapshot of the environment that you can roll back to. If I were to select these particular changes or this particular snapshot, it's going to do a comparison of now compared to that previous state, and then allow you to revert anything back to that previous state. So this works best for if something was accidentally removed or accidentally modified in a way that you need to revert it. The restore to a previous version is a great way to restore those configurations. And this is something that you don't need to necessarily set up. Just as long as you've got those scheduled fetches running with Salto, you'll have access to those previous versions. Under the environment settings, you can set up a monitor to monitor for changes that are happening in the environment. I usually recommend to set this up in the production environment and to set it up for a group of configurations that are going to be really key for you all. And what this will do is that it will send out a notification anytime that Salto sees that certain configurations are updated. So for example, here I've got a monitor that's set up that anytime a trigger is modified or removed, it's going to send me an email. And I've also got this set up to only send me this if we notice that it's happening in Zendesk directly. So in other words, if it goes through a Salto deployment, don't send me that alert, but only send me that alert if we see that it's happened directly in Zendesk. So for example, let's say that I added a trigger yesterday and someone deleted that in production. I needed to quickly restore that. I could get an email from Salto saying that, hey, we noticed that a trigger was removed directly in production, and then you could use Salto to restore to that previous state. And you can use this for any of the configurations that are being monitored in Salto. I just have a couple here, like macros or triggers. You can also use this for articles as well.